Hello, Senior Stoner fans. It's the real Senior Stoner back at you for your Puffco Proxy with Bub Diamond Dab of the Day. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. As always, don't forget, hit the subscribe button, send a like, and I'll reply to all the comments. Let's get started for today's topic. I'm a huge worrier. 1 in 10 people, 1 in 10, find uncontrollable worrying a disability, an affliction. So if you're one of the people that are continually fighting with your worries, think about it. Are they distressing us because we feel controlled by them? Or if we don't worry, is something bad going to happen? Do our worries pour into our head when we wake up at night? How about when we started worrying, do we find it almost impossible to stop? Yes, 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 and yes. I know, it's unfortunate. Well, guess what? We're not alone. We are not alone. Many people have uncontrollable worrying. That's right. It's a distressing affliction that feels like it's become an inseparable part of who they are. Chronic worrying is often driven by the need to worry to make sure things will be okay. It affects our mood, and it can have detrimental effects on our relationships. It can have horrible effects on work and social life. So it's important that we understand how we can manage our worrying. We want to problem solve, not worry. Worrying is normally a very inefficient attempt to problem solve. So when we worry, maybe try to turn that into a useful problem solving by considering what we need to do now to deal with the problem. We might want to have a look at a website. We might want to have a look at a book. We might want to find a guide to help develop practical problem solving skills. Because you don't want to waste time on the what if questions. Wasting time thinking of situations that might happen, but in reality are quite unlikely to happen, is really just a misuse of brain time, frankly. So we got to spot when we're starting to ask ourselves what if type questions. The vast majority of those scenarios we create using the approach that's likely never to happen. So why waste our time thinking about them? I do it all the time. So how do we handle the what ifs? Maybe let's not kid ourselves that worry is always helpful. Don't be fooled into thinking that worry will always be helpful. If we're a persistent worrier, we've probably come to use worrying simply to kid ourselves that we're doing something about a problem. That is not an alternative to tackling the problem in practical ways. It's not. Chronic worriers come to believe, however, that worrying is useful, and it's not. You got to learn to accept uncertainty. Uncertainty is just a fact of life, so we got to try to accept that we'll always have to live with and tolerate some uncertainty in our lives. Unexpected things can happen, will happen, and accepting that is no longer making our life easy or reducing our anxieties. It's just fact. So how do we begin accepting and dealing with uncertainties? That's critically important. We always have to try to lift our mood. Negative moods fuel worrying. Negative moods include anxiety, sadness, anger, guilt, shame, and even physical states like chronic pain. So if we've got to worry, maybe we got to do it when we're not in such horrible state of mind, because then the worrying will put us in a more difficult place, even more difficult to stop. And if we find ourselves worrying in a negative mood, maybe we could immediately try to do something to lift that mood. We also have to remember not to suppress unwanted worries. When we do start to worry, don't try and fight or control the thoughts. It's helpful to notice them rather than to suppress them, because actively trying to suppress thoughts simply makes them bounce back even more. So we got to acknowledge that the worrisome thoughts are there, but move on, because we've done something useful about them. We've got to manage the times when our worry becomes, well, smart worry. If we find that worrying becomes useful it gets out of control. You got to try to manage it down. You got to soothe yourself the best you can. You see, changing what if worries to how can I worries means that we're managing them. You see, it's important because, as we mentioned, what if worries aren't helpful. You got to turn those into how can I, because that's how you do something. And you got to not lose sleep over worrying. Often our worries stop us from sleeping. We find ourselves running and ruminating through every possible combination and problem that's happened or could happen. Not very productive. It'll keep us awake longer, make us anxious the next day possibly, and guess what? Ineffective. So if we wake up worrying, maybe write a list of things that we need to do, including dealing with the worry. Maybe you'll find out that we've transferred it to a piece of paper, and guess what? It's no longer in our heads. Got to stay in the moment, everybody. Spending most of our time worrying about things that might happen in the future means that we spend less time enjoying the present and staying in the moment. Please, everyone, acknowledge the worries that enter your head, but try not to engage them. Try to refocus and shift to what we're doing in the moment. Our TV program, our book, our magazine, playing with sugar. That's my cat, Chloe, talking, by the way. So whatever you can do to get out of that worry and stay in the moment is what we need to think about doing. This has been the Real Senior Stoner, and we've simply been talking about ways to deal with worry because everyone does it. We all worry. And you know what? Worry is a pretty good thing. Means your brain's working. You know, if you stumble through life, think about this. Stumble through life. Oh, I don't worry about anything. You're going to step off of a, God forbid, a street corner and be hit by a car because you worry about nothing. Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying simply is we don't want to let it take control of us, the worrying. That's the difficult part because it does. Sometimes worrying does take control of us. And this has been the Real Senior Stoner, talking about ways to control it, ways to minimize it, maybe even eliminate it. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to do what you need to do. Let's take our hit on our Puffco Proxy with Bub. The dab train is rolling. Cheers, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Like the big click. First time, every time. The Real Senior Stoner. Cheers, everyone.